Welcome to the Every Night is Game Night preview series, the show where designers and publishers share their passion and answer critical questions about their Kickstarter projects. If you're on the fence about a pledge, this is the show for you.
Every Night is Game Night preview series, episode 27, Gem Rush, with the designer, Jeremy Lennert. Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to the Every Night is Game Night preview series. I'm your host, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to get back to our regular episodes. Anthony and I will be back in the chair talking about all the games you love this coming Friday, so don't you worry. In the meantime, we have a treat for me. I hope it's a treat for you, but this one's a treat for me. This game is Gem Rush. It is on Kickstarter right now as we speak, and we have the designer of Gem Rush on here, Jeremy Lennert. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Very cool. So I am excited to have you, Jeremy, because as we were saying before the call, I have been a big fan of some of your games. Like Gem Rush came out in 2012, 13, around there. Really enjoyed the first edition of that. Darkest Night just completed a successful Kickstarter for the second edition. Have really enjoyed that game for a long time. So before we get into Gem Rush, though, let's talk a little bit about yourself. Let's get to know who Jeremy Lennert is as a gamer, and then we can get into some of the design stuff, as we move along.
Okay, well, I've been interested in games and in designing games for as long as I can remember, back to drawing mazes when I was 4 or 5. And I have been particularly interested in board gaming since college. I played some games like Betrayal at House on the Hill and Arkham Horror and Settlers of Catan and the Lord of the Rings cooperative game. And I have been very excited to design my own games over the past several years.
Very cool. So I noticed in terms of your design credits, a lot of them have come with via the Victory Points game. You also had Frontier Stage, which is also a Victory Points game. Is it one of those cases where you're like a preferred freelancer? Is there like a structured relationship there? How did that all come about?
Well, my day job is a computer programmer at Quicksilver Software, and for a while I was just designing some board games to enjoy by myself and with my friends when I discovered that the president of Quicksilver Software, Bill Fisher, is childhood friends with Alan Emmerich, who runs Victory Point Games, and they encouraged me to talk to him and see if he'd be interested in publishing some of the games. Turns out that he was. So that was a very convenient relationship for me to get into, although it took a long time before the stars finally aligned and we were able to start publishing the games. In particular, it was a lot of trouble finding the right artist for the early games.
What was your first with them?
First game that I pitched them was Darkest Night, but the first one that we actually published was For the Crown, because For the Crown was a little bit more of an abstract game, and so the art requirements were less of a barrier to getting it out the door.
And then Gem Rush soon followed after that.
Yes,
All
Gem
right.
Rush was one of the earlier games.
Very cool. And so we did a review of Gem Rush. I did. I guess about a couple of months ago. We every once in a while on the regular Every Night is Game Night podcast, we like to kind of look back at the quote unquote hidden gems. And when looking at the term gem, it's like, oh, Gem Rush. Not a lot of people kind of talk about that. I know Z Garcia kind of had a recent-ish review of it saying that it was one of his favorites. So I'm like, okay, let me take a look at that. And I'm like, wow. Well, actually, let me retake a look at that because I played it before. And it's like, wow, yes, this is definitely a thing. So like just off the bat, I think people know that I am a fan of the game. I really enjoy this as a solo, as a co-op in particular. But let's just set the scene. Like we're talking to an audience that is interested in learning more about the Kickstarter. Let's set the scene, and maybe you can just break down the basics of what Gem Rush is, the different modes of it, and then, we'll go from there.
Okay. So Gem Rush is a light, family-friendly game about dwarves building a magical gem mine. It's really easy to learn. and it centers on set collection and tile laying. So you have this mine built out of these modular room tiles laid together to form a grid. So you have passages you can move around in the mine, and you have this hand of gem cards. And on your turn, you can move up to 3 spaces and then perform 1 action, and that's pretty much it. If you move into a room that's already there, that's just a movement, but if you move into a room that doesn't exist yet, you have to build it. You do that by matching the gems from the cards in your hand to the doorway that you're moving through. That lets you build a new room and score points. And then you can use the special abilities of each of the rooms you built to replenish your hand in various different ways and try and tailor your draw to the specific gems you're going to need for whatever's next.
Mm-hmm. I guess what I really enjoy about it is like you're talking about like delving into a mine. Like the game does a really good job of replicating that sense of delving with the growing map, like the growing tiles. You know, you get that Carcassonne feeling of like by the end, at the beginning it's this tiny little thing, but then at the end it's like this sprawling megalopolis. It's like you can kind of remember where you were. It's like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened here, and I remember when I got stuck in that dead end.
Yeah,
so
that's very true.
It gives a real kind of visual punch that a lot of like these similar games, like, you know, because it's a card game, you know, like, and we talked about tiling, but the tiles, quote unquote, are cards, like especially in the first edition.
Yes.
So, you know, everything was a deck of cards. So you're like, so I didn't realize what I was getting, but like once you kind of get into it, it's like it's really like a board game, you know, in the way it kind of lays itself out, you know, and there's a lot of like depth to it. So maybe talk about the difference between the cooperative and the competitive modes.
Sure. So one of the interesting things about Gem Rush is that it's this sort of bimodal game where you can play it either as a team or racing against each other. And that works because the core game loop is the same in both modes. It's focused about building out the mine. But in the competitive version, you're trying to be the first to get to a target number of points and sort of one-up the other players by making the bigger and better combos than they do. Whereas in the crisis mode, you have a time limit, and you're all working together as a team, trying to accomplish as much as you can within that time limit.
Yeah, and there's not a, like, in terms of the competitive, like, you would think, like, your dwarves rushing in a mine, there'd be, like, a lot of, like, screw the other guy, take that, or everything. It's not really that. It's more of, like, an optimization puzzle. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's some amount of blocking the other people if you can build in the space that they're aiming for, but mostly the emphasis is on optimizing your own plays, especially as you get into larger games where you have many opponents. There's not as much reward for blocking other people as for just making the best move you can for yourself.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, cooperative, competitive aren't that different. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still making this optimization puzzle. It's just, what is the time pressure? Is the time pressure beating your opponent, or is the time pressure the deck that's slowly running out? I kind of appreciated that about the game. I know some people were like, there's not a lot of difference between the two modes. For me, I like the cooperative mode, so I wasn't really, and I like the optimization, so that was not a drawback for me at all. What is your favorite way to play?
I enjoy both modes. We have been, for playtesting to develop the second edition, we tended to focus more on rush mode just because I thought it was a little bit faster when you don't have the coordination and sort of the powwow of figuring out who's going to do what. But I also played a lot of crisis mode games, especially when I was testing solitaire.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then it came out, you know, successful, acclaimed. You know, there are people out there who like it, and I'm definitely one of those fans. So now enter this new edition. So this is in the Premier line of Victory Point Games. I believe that's what the line is called. We had Darkest Night, as we mentioned before. Before that, it was Nemo's War, and now Gem Rush. So I guess tell me a little bit about the decision making for this particular title to receive the quote-unquote Premier Line treatment.
Sure. Well, the Premier Line treatment, the biggest factor, of course, is how well the previous edition of the game did commercially. If no one bought it, then it's probably not going to get a new edition.
Yeah.
In other factors are the opportunity for us to add new things into the game and sort of polish it to give a better playing experience. Gem Rush was a title that I had some ideas floating around for, but that could have gone into an expansion for the first edition, but we weren't able to do that because we had released multiple versions of the first edition where the playing cards were made out of different materials, and so it wasn't really possible for us to release an expansion that would integrate with all the first edition copies that were already out there. So the second edition was a good opportunity to bring in some new content and also incorporate the skill card promo pack that was released separately for the first edition.
So that is what you're adding. Like, so I noticed that there are new things, like there's new room tiles. You unlock the stretch goals for 7th player. Player powers. That is the thing that probably has me most excited because everyone acted the same in the first edition. So maybe tell us a little bit about what is possible now.
So in the second edition, every player gets their own skill card at the beginning of the game. It gives them a special power or edge in the gameplay. And there's a couple different variations of how you can use them, but just the normal mode is you simply give a skill card to every player. And the skills will let you do things like they'll let you take a particular gem and treat it as wild so you can use it to pay for everything. Or at the start of your turn, you can draw one and discard one card so you have more choice over what cards you have to use. Or they'll increase your maximum movement speed or your hand limit to give you more options in the mine. And this puts a bit of a slant on the game every time you play because you want to adjust your strategy to maximize the benefit you're getting from your skill, and it prevents the game from playing the same way every time.
So I hear this a lot in the threads. Like I have the first edition. I'm pretty happy with it. Is this second edition worth it? I know it's, that the tiles are, we reconfigured their graphic design. Would you say that with the additions that this is like how different an experience would you say this is given all the new stuff in there?
Well, it's not an entirely new experience. It's more of a refinement of the previous experience. There is new content. There's new skills. There's some new special gems. Like the warp stone lets you move around the mine more easily, and the orhalcum can be used for extra points. And I sort of rebalanced the room tiles to make them a little more even and rebalanced the combinations that you use to build new rooms so that there's a little more variety in how those work. In the first edition, the high-value doors were usually a bunch of different colors. In the second edition, there's more doors where you need a lot of one color to score high points, and getting a lot of a single color is more difficult because of the way the cards are distributed and the way that you get 2 gems on each card. But it's an essentially similar experience. So I guess I can't say that you need to get this if you are happy playing with the first edition, but if you want to sort of take the game up to the next level and get an expanded and more refined version of the game, then the second edition is for you.
Very cool. And not only do you get the second edition, I noticed that there is an app version that is coming out along with this. Are you on the development team on that end?
I am. I am the lead programmer creating the digital version of the game.
And it will be available for Steam?
Yes, it will be available on Steam. We're also going to try and release it on several more platforms, but we haven't figured out the full list of supported platforms yet. But it definitely will be available on Steam for Windows, Mac, and Linux. We'd like to release it on mobile as well, but we're seeing how things go.
Is that like a design thing, a stretch goal thing? I mean, maybe articulate some of the hesitation there, or is that something that's kind of behind the screen? I shouldn't ask about that.
Well, there's 2 main risks. One is fitting everything onto a very small screen while still giving a smooth gameplay experience. The other is there's some additional technical challenges working for mobile. And I believe that we're going to be able to overcome all of those challenges and produce a good mobile game, but we're focusing on the PC version for now and want to build that first as a baseline, and then we're going to extend it from there.
All right, very cool. So as the project has developed, it's kind of in the life of its Kickstarter. By the time this episode drops, it'll be kind of in the back half of the Kickstarter process. Tell me a little bit about like feedback from fans and interaction from fans and all that kind of thing.
I've seen a lot of positive comments from people who are excited about the second edition, fans of the first edition. That's always real nice for me to see and to know that people have enjoyed my games. There's always some challenges with the organization, the communication to everyone, people complaining about the shipping. I wish I could fix the shipping. I'm just a designer.
I guess that's where I was going with that question. I mean, I think at the end of the day, dude, guys, I'm talking to all the podcast people out there. This is an awesome game. Like, I mean, I love this game. It's one of my favorite kind of quote unquote fillers. It's a giant footprint for a filler, but I'm willing to live with it because of the experience that it delivers. But like the discourse around the game has kind of surrounded the shipping. I mean, it is kind of a pricey thing. I'm not going to ask you about it because, like you said, you're a designer. There's only so much you can do. But like just hearing some of that feedback of like, oh, why am I going to pay, half the price again in shipping and all that kind of stuff? Like, how does that make you feel as someone who's like passionate and involved in the project? And, is there like a message that you would like to get out to people who feel that way?
Well, it's always a bit painful for me to hear that someone is going to pass on my game for a reason that's out of my control, but I fully understand it. People have to manage their own budgets and make their own decisions about what they're going to spend their dollars on. I wish I could magically make everything free, but I can't really control the price. I can only control the game. So I will make the best game I can for you, and it's up to you to decide whether you can afford it or not.
People know me. They know my podcast. I'm a pretty enthusiastic guy. I don't kind of gush over every game, or at least I try. I think I don't. I really do think this game deserves it. This game it's really cool. It's been cool since 2012, and it sounds like it's just going to get better and better. So yeah, is there anything else we need to know about the project in terms of, further stretch goals that you guys are hoping to look at, or anything else?
We do have some additional stretch goals that haven't been revealed yet. I think they're just waiting till the earlier stretch goals get met and sort of rolling things out gradually. I really hope that we can meet as many stretch goals as possible.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Where can we catch up, besides the Kickstarter page, where can we catch up and get a little bit more info from you and about this or anything else?
I always try and answer questions on Board Game Geek. Anything that comes up.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeremy. This has been a real pleasure. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's going to do it for another episode of the Every Night is Game Night Preview Series. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Jeremy for taking the time to talk about GemRush. It really is one of my favorites, and really happy to talk about it. I love the first edition, and I can't wait to get the second edition on the table. Playing it, I'll probably have a review for you guys as soon as I'm able to do so. If you want to reach out to us and share about more Kickstarter projects, it's been 27 episodes, and I'm not going to stop these anytime soon. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from publishers and some feedback from fans as well that enjoy the series. We're really trying to replicate that experience of going to a con or another place where a designer, publisher is showing off the game themselves. They can kind of talk for themselves about the game. They are the people that are going to sell the game and share the game better than anybody else in the world. Really hoping that kind of replicates that experience. I wish I can just kind of set up a demo table and show you games myself, but I'm hoping that this is the next best thing. And I'm also hoping that I'm asking the proper questions so that you guys get a full sense of what these games are all about. There's always a line that you have to straddle between the sell, which is, really important to get the word out there, but also just being critical and asking the challenging questions, asking questions that the fans are asking so that you can really get a sense of whether these projects are worth your hard-earned cash. Please reach out to us, ENGN_podcast on the Twitter, everynightisgamenight.com, which is a sister of BoardGamersAnonymous.com. Please rate and review on iTunes. You know how important that is. 5 stars or however many stars you think we deserve. And yada, yada, yada. You know the drill at the end of these episodes by now. Cool. So we will see you Friday with a regular episode, and we'll be back with a preview series whenever somebody wants to come back on and preview their game. So until then, later, everybody.